Okay, hello. Today in my class, we're starting a new chapter, chapter 2. Um, and we are going to begin the chapter with learning how to solve equations. Um, Now, the first couple lessons we do are going to be pre-lessons, and they might be a review of earlier mathematics, but given our situation, we want to make sure that we go over everything before we do some of the harder material. So today, our pre-lesson is going to be one-step equations. The reason they're called one-step equations is because they should be able to be solved in one step. Our key concept today is this: all equations with one type of variable and an equal sign can be solved to find the value of the variable by using inverse operations. So just a reminder that a variable in math is a letter. So if there is one type, the reason I say that is if there's one x or all of them are x's or y's and an equal sign, you can solve them using inverse operations. But if there's multiple different variables like x, y, and z, that's a little bit different. Okay, so let's talk about inverse operations. Inverse operations undo each other. And so, for example, if we want to undo an add, if we want to undo the add, the inverse operation of that would be to subtract. And that goes both ways. If you wanted to undo a subtract, you would add. Right? So if I wanted to undo a plus 10, I would subtract 10. If I wanted to undo a minus 10, I would add 10. Similarly, if you want to undo a multiply, you divide. Okay? And if you want to undo a divide, you multiply. And there are other inverse operations that we're going to go over as we get further, but for now we're going to focus on adding and subtracting and multiplying and dividing. So the idea here, and I just am going to start in with the examples, is if you have an equation, right, you check, okay, we have an x and we have an equal sign, that means we're going to undo this. We're going to figure out what the value of x is by undoing what's there, okay? So basically, most of us have heard of PEMDAS, right? And we're going to go in the opposite direction with PEMDAS. We're going to start with undoing add and subtract, and then multiply and divide, and then eventually we'll get into exponents and parentheses as well. Okay, so x plus 13 equal 27. So the idea to do this is to imagine you want to get x by themselves. So what I do to explain to my students is imagine that x is a person that's dangerous, right? And this equal sign is the doorway. So if we're in the classroom, right, and we want to get away from danger, 27 is in the hallway already. They are not coming back in. They are running down the hallway going to get help. But 13 wants to get out of danger. In order to get 13 out of danger, we must do the inverse operation that's there. So the inverse of adding 13 would be to subtract 13. Okay, and so that will cancel it out because plus 13 and minus 13 are exact opposites. And then the idea is what you do to one side of an equation, you must also do to the other. So on the outside of the door, we also have to subtract 13. So x is what is left inside. We have our equal sign, our doorway, and then we do 27 minus 13 and get 14. That's our value of x. Okay, let's do this again. Now, this is the most basic way, but they'll start shuffling your variable around. But if you look at the next one, there's one variable, just b, there's an equal sign, and there's some numbers. So we know we can solve this. Okay, so if b is our danger, right? And this is our door right here, the equal sign. -7 is already safe, okay? So what we want to rescue is this 3. So what is the inverse of -3? It would be add 3. So I'm going to add 3 here so that it cancels. And I'm going to add 3 here so that I can get my answer. So B is left alone. -7 plus 3 is going to give me -4 as my answer. Great. Okay, next. Do you think it works the same or different with decimals, right? If I have 4x equals 6.4, we still have, if x is our person that's dangerous, right? Our danger doesn't have to be a person. Here's our doorway. 6.4 is already safe, right? So we got to somehow rescue this 4. Let me remind you what it means when you have a number right next to the variable. That means multiply in math. So this really means 4 times x equals 6.4. Well, to get that 4 out, the opposite of timesing by 4 would be to divide by 4. And so we write it like this as a fraction. We're dividing. And so that cancels our 4 out. But we would also have to do it on this side. Now, don't be afraid here on some of these to use a calculator if you need to. So if you do this, 6.4, remember when you're dividing, you want to divide top divided by bottom here, and you get 1.6. It is okay to get a decimal answer when you are solving equations. Okay, that's the next type. All right, next, example 4. I know we have lots of examples here, but I just want to make sure we go over every single type of one-step equation you might see. All right, so this is a little tough to see, so I will rewrite it. It says x over 4 equal -9. Okay, so let me remind you, just like up here, x over 4 in a fraction means division. All right, if this is our door, right, and x is the danger, -9 is already safe. We need to rescue our 4. So to get 4 out, we have to do the opposite, or the inverse. So the inverse of dividing by 4 would be to multiply by 4, okay, and that cancels, and then I multiply by 4 over here, giving me my answer. X equals -9 times 4 would give me -36. And we're done. Now, the one last one that, even if you've learned this before, a lot of students tend to forget is what happens here. So I'm going to write this a little bit larger for the sake of the video and so you can see. It says 4/5 x equal 28. Okay, again, we have our variable and our equal sign. So if x is our danger, right, and this is our doorway, 28 safe, we have to rescue 4/5. Okay, so this is, notice that up here, the x was in the fraction, right? It was x divided by 4. This one, the x is outside of the fraction. So it really means 4/5 times x. So to undo a fraction that's next to your x, what we do is multiply by the reciprocal, okay? And so maybe we should write that down. A reciprocal is a flipped fraction, so that when they multiply together, they'll equal 1. So, for example, the reciprocal of 3/4 would be 4/3. And you know it's a reciprocal because when you multiply these two together, you'll get 1. So over here, back to our problem, to get the 4/5 out, we will multiply by the reciprocal of 5/4. That will cancel this and this. But you also have to do it over here, times 5/4. Again, don't be afraid to use a calculator here. Let me remind you how to type this in. So if you need to, you would do 28 times, and if your calculator has a parenthesis, I recommend using them around the fraction just in case you need to keep the operations separate. So we would do 5 divided by 4. Remember, a fraction is just division, equals. And so our answer here is 35. X equal 35. Now, in all of these, something to point out is you can check your answers by putting it back in. So 4/5, 4 divided by 5, times what we got was 35. This should equal 28 if we're correct. And it does. And so that's how you can check your answer, by putting your number that you got back in for X and making sure that the equation works. Okay, hopefully you found this helpful. Tomorrow we'll do a two-step equation review, and then we'll move on to some of the harder multi-step for 8th grade. If you are in my class today, we are going to be working on the one-step equation worksheet. It would be side 1, and then tomorrow we will do side 2. Hopefully everyone has a great day, and I will see you soon.